Good morning. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining us today. I know that many of you have been looking forward for the opportunity to join us today and hear a little bit more about Pinnacle Living and what's ahead of us. Before we get started, I'd like to just introduce some of the team from Pinnacle Living. I'll start off with Kevin Salmanian. He is our CFO. Many of you know Kevin. He's a regular around here. As is Dan Nyman, our Chief Operating Officer. Chris Henderson is our Chief Executive Officer. And Martha Stokes is our Church and Community Relations person at our corporate office, Pinnacle Living. Followed by Charles Wickham, Donor Development and Relations. And at the end of the line is an old face to many of us, James Green. He works to support our communities in finance and accounting. Thank you again for joining us, and Chris will now come up forward and share some more information.
Thanks, Amy. Can we dim the lights?
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
First things first, someone said, what bad news are you here to share today?
Yes.
The answer is I'm not here to share bad news today. So what we want to do today, and Ann Williams, where's Ann? Over on this side somewhere. Ann and I talked and thought it would be really good to just for us to come in and give an update as to what's happening at Cedarfield, but also what's happening at our other Pinnacle Living communities. So this is really just a state of the organization, and we want to share with you some of the great things that are happening at our other Pinnacle Living communities and what's happening in our lives. So no bad news today. We're not here to address rate increases. But I will tell you that our team is working hard. The budget, the board will be approving the budget guidelines next week at our January board meeting, and then we'll be between January and April working with the department directors. James and Kevin are both here. Thank you for not booing them when they were introduced. But they're going to be working hard with the department directors, and we're going to do everything we can. Last year was an anomaly, and we hope that's not going to be the case this year. It looks like inflation is slowing down. I know there are a couple of economists in the room that are a whole lot smarter about that than I am, and I'm not going to get into a long discussion about that, but things are moving in the right direction for us. The other great thing is it appears as though the labor force is slowly beginning to stabilize. Let me restate that. Slowly beginning to stabilize. Our team has done an exceptional job here at Cedarfield and in our other communities with team member retention. And I had a conversation with a couple of folks at the employee team member Christmas party that a few folks were upset that the total gift amount was lower for employees this year, even though you all did a spectacular job and did a great job in raising more money. That's because we have more heads and more people. Dan will talk about the number of vacancies. Dan, can you talk about that when you chat in a minute? And I'm not going to take that away, but I think you're going to be shocked by where we sit today as compared to where we sat a year ago with the number of vacant positions in all of our communities. And it's because we feel as though we're a good employer, and a big part of that is you all. Our team members are here because of you. It's that simple. They could work elsewhere. They could probably work for more money elsewhere, but they're here because of you. And that's a win for all of us. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. But I want to thank Amy and I want to thank Ann for setting this up for us. Here's a quick slide. It's not advancing. I don't have it on. See, Eddie, I told you I'd screw it up. Okay, no, it was me. I didn't have the clicker on. Here's a quick slide of everything that we would like to cover today. We're going to try to do this in about 40 or 45 minutes to give you all plenty of time to ask any questions that you may have. Eddie reminded me that when we get to the Q&A, that whoever's standing at the podium needs to repeat the question so that those who are watching from their homes will be able to hear that question. But today we want to talk about the organizational structure of Pinnacle Living. It's a little bit different than it has been in past years. We feel in a positive way, and we'll talk about why. We want to talk about the members and the role of our Pinnacle Living Board of Directors. And I know that there's been a lot of conversation here amongst the council and other residents about resident board representation. I want to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to turn to Kevin, and Kevin's going to talk a little bit about financial structure, but more importantly, the great financial performance that we're seeing and the great work that your teams are doing in that regard. We've got a slide in here that talks about capital investments, and when you see the numbers, I think you're going to be a little bit surprised. You all who have been with us since 2017 and 18, when we started envisioning the new Cedar Field, that most of us are living through now, and many of you have lived through that expansion, and it's been costly. But we've got a slide showing how those numbers all break down. And then we've got a slide showing, and in that same slide, we also talk about what we plan to spend in the future. Because maintenance and upkeep, as we all know, I think tomorrow is the last day of operation for this room, or is today the last day of operation? Sunday. I didn't start that room right. Sunday is the last day of operation in the room. So we're looking forward to the renovation that's going to happen here and in the lobby. We know that's going to have some pain. There are going to be some pain points associated with that, and we appreciate your patience with that. But we're going to have a much, much better space, a more usable space, better technology, better sound, better audio, and we're excited to share that with you. Dan Nyman is going to share some of the results of recent resident and team member surveys as part of the We Care Connect survey results. I want to thank everybody who's participating in those, so that's important information. Now, one of the things that we've talked about in the past is that those surveys are not anonymous anymore. And the challenge with anonymous surveys, quite candidly, is when someone has a concern, we don't know who to follow up with. So thank you for participating in those surveys. And Dan's got some great numbers to share in that regard. I will prepare you for the numbers are a little small. We got them as big as we could on the screen, but there'll be copies of these slides available for everyone immediately following this meeting. Amanda's printing those as we speak. So if you can't read it on the screen, and Dan is going to share as many of those numbers as we can, but some of the numbers are a bit small. Folks sitting in the back of the room absolutely positively won't be able to see them. I apologize for that. Then we want to talk a little bit about where we are with diversity, equity, and inclusion. A number of you participated in some focus group discussions back in February of 2023. We gathered good information. Actually, that was the first of several focus groups that occurred here at Cedar Field, at Westminster Canterbury Richmond, at Brander Mill Woods, at Lifespire, specifically Lakewood Manor, or Lakewood, I'm sorry, they don't use Manor any longer, Lakewood, and at Beth Shalom. Unfortunately, Beth Shalom is no longer a not-for-profit provider. It's been acquired by a for-profit entity. So as we begin phase 2 of what we're referring to as Dreaming Home when it comes to our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, the folks at Beth Shalom are not participating in that. But we'll share a little bit about where we are, what we're doing there, and what's coming from that. And then we want to talk about our strategic plan and what the future holds. You all have been through a lot of pain with expansion and renovation here. We've spent a lot of money here. Next up are our other communities, and we're going to talk a little bit about where we are with that. But more importantly, we want to share our strategic plan with you and our 6 key strategic initiatives and talk a little bit about each of those as we look to the future. We feel as though we do good work, and I've shared with you in the past here at Cedar Field, I think we do excellent work, but we can do better, and we want you all to be a part of that. So that's the plan for the morning. Does that sound good for everybody? Yep. Okay, we're going to try to get you all out of here in an hour. So let's start with mission, vision, and values. The mission of Pinnacle Living, it is advancing, good. The mission of Pinnacle Living is simple. It's enriching life's journey. Those 3 words are important to us. The old mission statement that we had prior to 2018 was to provide facilities, services, and programs to enhance the quality of life for older adults. I think there were 2 of us who could remember what that was, and that's only because I've been around for 25 years. It was not a good mission statement. It wasn't at all uplifting, and it wasn't aspirational. So when we changed our names and we named and rebranded, we knew that a new mission statement was important to us, and our team members live this every day, and we're proud of that. Our vision is simple. It's a culture in which age does not define the person, and you all live that every single day. Got to spend some time at Christmas with my parents. My dad's 85. Unfortunately, my dad's an old 85. Excuse me. Age is a lot more than a number, and there are people in this room that live that every day. And we want to be a part of that aging process with you. And aging well is important. Age is not defined by your number. It's defined by what you do and who you are. And that's an important part of what our work. And then our values, you're familiar with these, are culture, diversity, stewardship, partnership, hospitality, and quality. Now, as we look to the future, we embrace all of this. And how do we do that? Well, let's talk a little bit about organizational structure. I think a number of you know, everyone who looks at your disclosure statement and your contractual relationship with Pinnacle Living actually talks about Virginia United Methodist Homes Incorporated. Virginia United Methodist Homes was founded many, many years ago, 75 years ago to be exact, as the Methodist Home. The Methodist Home was the Hermitage Richmond over at 1600 Westwood Avenue. That's where we started. We've lived that mission, that work for 45 years. Speak up.
Yes.
Oh, I apologize. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies. Thank you. The work that started at the Hermitage is very different than what we do here at Cedarfield today. I think Dr. Vaya, our founder, would have never envisioned a community with 500 residents, cottages, apartments, the wellness building, the life that we bring and you bring to this building every single day. It was a very institutional model that was originally developed in 1948. And it was good work, but it wasn't who we are today. And we've evolved it from that. And we've evolved in that from an organizational standpoint as well. And I apologize, the blue is hard to read, and I'm sorry about that. But this is our current organizational chart. We have the Pinnacle Living Board of Directors, or Virginia United Methodist Homes, doing business as Pinnacle Living in that dark blue box at the top. I'm directly employed by the Pinnacle Living Board of Directors to serve as the president and CEO of Pinnacle Living. We have two separate entities that make up the rest of the organization. And on the left, on my right-hand side, your left, is Windsor Mead Williamsburg. And on my left-hand side, your right, is the Hermitage Capital and Reserve Corporation. The Pinnacle Living Board elects the board members for both of those entities. Windsor Mead is our Williamsburg campus. And many of you who have been around for a long, long time remember Windsor Mead going through a bankruptcy back in 2012 and 2013. Pinnacle Living was very fortunate that our forefathers had the foresight to create Windsor Mead as a separate entity. Although it was a wholly owned subsidiary, or in the Commonwealth of Virginia, Pinnacle Living is the sole member of Windsor Mead Williamsburg from a corporate standpoint. Pinnacle Living had limited responsibility for Windsor Mead, but Pinnacle Living did the right thing and supported Windsor Mead through that. Kevin's going to share some numbers in a little bit about where Windsor Mead stands today. It's a very different story than where we were all the way back in 2012 and 2013. In fact, we don't have a single residence available for occupancy at Windsor Mead today. 0. 100% occupied and sold. And there's some great news to share with you there. And then we have the Hermitage Capital and Reserve Corporation, again on my left and your right. The Hermitage Capital and Reserve Corporation was created as a supporting organization to support the mission of Pinnacle Living and Windsor Mead. Now, what does that mean? Our mission is enriching life's journey. We are going to rely on Pinnacle Living for growth. We're going to rely on Pinnacle Living for strategic focus, but we're going to use a lot of the funds that are in the Hermitage Capital and Reserve Corporation as seed money to do that work. One of the things we're going to talk about in a little while is technology. And who'd have ever thought 20 years ago that your iPhone would become such an important part of your life? The problem with technology is we don't know what we don't know. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the investment that we're making in that. And the Hermitage Capital and Reserve Corporation, we think, is going to play an important part of that. As the CEO, I have 4 direct reports. Dan Nyman is our Chief Operating Officer. Kevin Selminen is our Chief Financial Officer. Charles Wickham as our Director of Donor Development. And Martha Stokes as our Director of Church and Community Relations. As we go from there, Dan is responsible as the Chief Operating Officer for sales and marketing in our communities, and that's Laura Jones, who is in the back of the room. Laura, thank you for joining us today. And she supports Emily and our sales teams in all of our communities and is doing great work in that regard. Clinical services, is Tamika here? You all know Tamika. She's not here today. I think is she in Roanoke, I think she's traveling to Roanoke today. So Tamika Ross is our new Vice President of Clinical Services, and we're thrilled to have Tamika on board. And she's doing great work for us. And then Rich Batone does our administrative services work, which involves a lot of insurance compliance work. It involves safety, it involves security, those entities, aspects of the operation. Dan's also responsible for supporting the executive directors in each of the 4 communities: Windsor Mead, Cedarfield, Hermitage Richmond, and Hermitage Roanoke. And then Kevin Selminen, as our CFO, supports IT services. Again, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Accounting and all aspects of accounting, including the audit process and the finance component of our organization. So that's where we are from an organizational standpoint as an organization. Our board of directors is a great board, and a number of our residents are having dinner with board members on Tuesday night. And this is the list of our current board members. I do serve on the board as president and CEO. Shirley Kaufman is our board chair. Shirley is a retired federal contracts and consulting specialist. I believe Shirley was with IBM, but I always draw a blank on that. So, and she's been a great board chair for us. Lisa Hahn is our past chair. Lisa is owner and founder of Insight Therapeutics. She and her partner do a lot of really interesting work with pharmaceutical companies and testing pharmaceutical outcomes in long-term care settings. So Lisa's been a great board member for us, great board chair. Lisa will be rotating off later this year as our outgoing past chairperson. Kevin Bruni is our vice chair. And Kevin is a human resources specialist with Chesterfield County and is also a faculty member at the University of Richmond. Hank Coleman is our secretary, and Hank is with Bank of America. He's a banking relations vice president and has been with us for a number of years. Jane Hornbeck is a retired RN and former lobbyist with the Commonwealth of Virginia. She spent a lot of time, interestingly enough, lobbying for the Volunteer Firefighters Association, which her lobbying experience has really helped us better understand how to relate with the Virginia General Assembly outside of the sessions, and that's been great work for us. Ellen Netting is retired Virginia Commonwealth University, department chair, chairing the Department of Social Services. And many of you know Ellen. Steve Jones is our sole clergy person on our board of directors, and Steve is a retired clergyman living in Virginia Beach, but is actually serving an appointment at the request of the bishop in Northern Virginia. And then Lisa Williams is our newest board member. She's an attorney with McGuire Woods. So we feel as though we've got great diversity with our board, and we're happy about that. And again, I want to thank Ann and the community leadership here. We're going to have a dinner here on Tuesday evening before our board meeting. We're really looking forward to that. It should be a fun night. The financial structure of the organization is unique. And we're going to go back to that org chart, but look at it in a different way. And I'm going to step aside here for just a second and ask everyone to focus on this. And I'm going to use this point. Oh, I can't step aside because the microphone doesn't go with me. I apologize. So please excuse the back of my head. Up here in this dark blue box, we have Virginia United Methodist Homes doing business as Pinnacle Living. That's the obligated group that Cedarfield is a part of. And here's the Pinnacle Living Obligated Group. The Pinnacle Living Obligated Group is made up of Hermitage Richmond, Hermitage Roanoke, Cedarfield, and the Pinnacle Advantage Program, which a number of you took advantage of before becoming residents here at Cedarfield. Outside of the Pinnacle Living Obligated Group, we have Windsor Mead Williamsburg. Operates as a Pinnacle Living community, supported as a Pinnacle Living community, supports the organization in the same way as Cedarfield and all of our other communities do, but it is outside of that obligated group piece. And then we have the Pinnacle Living Support Office. That's Kevin and Dan and Martha and James and Laura and everyone else who provides support to Amy and the team here on a daily basis. Then below that, we have the Hermitage Capital and Reserve Corporation. And again, that is simply a funding tool to fund future mission opportunities within the organization. That may become benevolent care in the future. It may become investments in technology that are going to be outside of our normal capital budgets. It may be seed money for new communities or redevelopment of existing communities. And that's where that money will come into play. And then, oops, I apologize, I hit the wrong button. And then here, we have a completely separate entity, and that's Senior Living Partners of Virginia. Senior Living Partners of Virginia is operating as Affirmation Home Health. Some of you know Affirmation, some of you have used Affirmation. I will be the first one to say we had a bumpy start with Affirmation Home Health. We started conversations with providers in the Commonwealth of Virginia about developing a home health and home care model back in 2016, and it took us a number of years to find the right partner to do that with. Jonathan Cook is my counterpart at LifeSpire. Jonathan and I started conversations shortly after Jonathan joined LifeSpire 5 years ago, and talking about what could the next step be, and is there an opportunity for us to partner together. So the good news is that we have affiliated and created an opportunity there. It's completely separate from Pinnacle Living. It's completely separate from LifeSpire. Operates as a separate board of directors. Pinnacle Living and LifeSpire are equal partners, 50-50 partners in that. We have invested equally in Senior Living Partners and Affirmation Home Health, and we will benefit equally as well. We had a quick board meeting last week with Affirmation Home Health, and the good news is that as of last week, we had 95 individuals who were receiving services from Affirmation Home Health. That's a big, big number for us, and we're proud of that. We're very, very close to stabilizing operations within that organization. And yes, we have invested in that, and that investment has been a bit over $1 million, but we feel as though the benefit is going to be significant to the residents of not only Cedar Field and LifeSpire, but to the greater community as well. And we think that's going to be a good opportunity for us. With that, I'm going to turn to Kevin and ask Kevin to talk about the year-end financial performance.
So you might see the back of my head a little bit too. Excuse me, as I turn, but I'm going to try to talk in the mic this way, so hopefully everyone can hear me here. So the first question that we have, and the first question that comes to my mind is, as Chris talks about the future state and key initiatives, is Pinnacle living on solid financial ground in order to achieve the results we want? And the short answer to that is yes. And here we can just look. I'm going to make sure I get the laser pointer correct. With Pinnacle living at about $78 million of cash and investments, Chris talked about Windsor Mead, which is around $17 million, with it being basically fully occupied, which is great news for the entire organization. And then our supporting organization that we have, the Hermitage Capital and Reserve Corporation, at just over $30 million. So I like that. As a financial person and your finance committee, which we meet with quarterly, we like to point out these figures for them. And I know that David and James do an excellent job of trying to answer any questions that your finance committee has. And so we completely encourage questions to talk about the future, key initiatives, and we will answer definitely what we can answer. But financial statements in themselves is a different language. It's like me trying to learn German. I don't know German, I would be confused. So how do we interpret these financial results for everyone who is looking at them? And to me, the best way to do that is through what you're seeing in the bottom of the slide, which is a financial reconciliation of cash. Basically, how do we receive cash and how are we spending it? When we look, basically we have received about $11.8 million, and I'm really focused here on Pinnacle Living and primarily Cedar Field. We receive around $11.8 million through our operations and through net entrance fees. And then last year, how did we spend that money? Well, we spent that money on debt payments. We spent that money on capital projects. Those are the two primary things where cash went out. But last year, as Chris mentioned, we also had what we call in accounting as an extraordinary item. And that was the sale of Hermitage, Northern Virginia. And that was that sale to Goodwood Living. That generated for the organization $25 million of cash. And so if I'm sitting in your seats, I would say, well, what did we do with that cash? And I think we took a very prudent approach. Around 56% of that went to our supporting organization, that Chris talked about and when he talks about our future state and our key initiatives. And then the remainder, around 44% of that, excuse me, 44% went into our investments. And the first part of this fiscal year, in August, the market went down, but it rebounded quite well, especially in November and December. I'm going to reiterate something that David and James spoke to the community when we talked last April about the budget. And the slide you're seeing here is overall for Pinnacle Living and the overall inflationary increases that we saw. As Chris mentioned, last year, we hope, was a very extraordinary year. I'm going to flip the slide because you're going to see a lot of the same line items that specifically affected Cedarfield. The first thing I want to talk about is we talk about year-over-year costs and their overall increase due to inflation. The first thing I want to talk about is recruitment and retention, because you're seeing that at a 30% increase just for Cedarfield. Chris talked about the good news that we have very few now open positions, but that wasn't the case a few years ago. Not only was that the case, but wages had to increase substantially, and that was a part of a restructuring that both Dan and Chris and the team here at Cedarfield did an excellent job with. But that costs money, and there is one major player in the United States that team members look to, and that's Indeed, when we look at jobs. And Indeed knows it, and Indeed charges you for advertising on it. And that is just a fact of the reality that we face. So that was one of our largest year-over-year increases. I like the next two. What do the next two tell me when we look at costs? Well, when depreciation goes up, that means I've spent capital investment into this community where you live. And I like that if I would be living in this community. I want to make sure that we're reinvesting in Cedarfield. The next one, resident services. Costs went up. Well, costs went up because we are going back to pre-COVID, and we are ensuring that the activities that we are spending, that you all take advantage of, those are very important to us. It's very important to the lifestyle overall of Cedarfield. So I like those two. What I don't like is the next one. I think that's utilities, if I'm remembering these slides correctly. And I think we know that utilities has increased. I encourage you to talk to family members and talk about how electricity, water, trash, sewer, gas have gone up. Because I think these are going to align exactly with what a lot of your friends who are seeing, or your sons or daughters are seeing as well. And that's a fact of the reality we're going to face. I do not see utilities reducing. I only see them actually going up as well. Salaries and benefits at 12%, the percentage is lower, but this represents our largest dollars. And we talked about that. We talked about it, and James and David talked about it in the budget meeting, but wages have gone up. And we have to meet those needs of team members, because we want to ensure that the team members that are providing the services here are happy when they come to Cedarfield, enjoy being here, and provide those services. But we have to pay them a fair wage as well. We're very mindful of this, and we see that that was one of the largest dollar increases. Now, I can tell you, when we look at the budget for next fiscal year, we don't know necessarily the final inflation figures. It's something that we will work with the Finance Committee on, but we know that wages is still a very important component to Pinnacle Living. It is our highest dollar component to Pinnacle Living, and we want to make sure that we are meeting those needs of team members. And so we'll be working closely with your departments and your Finance Committee for this budget year. Chris talked about IT, and you're seeing, what are we seeing there, 12? Yeah. Chris will talk later about the strategic direction of information technology. It's not going away. And really it needs to be, and continues to need to be, enhanced. Part of that is all the fun stuff we might see. And we'll come back later about those fun items. But a lot of it too is security. So these are just things to keep in mind as we look to what happened last fiscal year, what we're currently seeing this fiscal year. Now I get to talk about the fun stuff. And sometimes you see everything that's going on, and you see buildings getting built. But the reality is, how much did we really spend over the past few years on Cedarfield, an investment in Cedarfield in each one of you. And that was $91.5 million when you add up 2018 to 2023. With continued investment planned to 2029 of over $35 million. And I smile with that, and I think that shows the commitment we have to Cedarfield, and I hope you believe that as well, and all the positive investments we're making here. And so that is a very high-level presentation. If you have questions, of course, we're happy to answer it, but your finance committee and David can help answer those questions as well as we meet with them. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Dan.
Thank you, Kevin. I'd like to start, Chris asked me to address the recruitment and retention just for a moment. I'd like to start there, and it's really important to start there because it ties into the next area that we'll discuss, which is the resident satisfaction and engagement surveys. I think you all know. What's that? Pull the mic up. Very good.
I'm short, Dan. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Standing here last year at about this time, we had an entirely different situation as those of you who were in the room at the time. We had a lot of transitioning going on. We had a very, very heavy utilization of agency over the holidays of 22 into 23. It affected our quality, and ultimately it affected your satisfaction with your lifestyle here. I'm pleased to say that we have not utilized agency, for our teams, have not utilized agency in any of our communities since last February. We're coming up on the 12-month anniversary. We're one of very few organizations in the state, in the Commonwealth, that can say that. Very, very important to us. We made a significant investment in our employee retention and then the focus that we pay, and ultimately you all made a very heavy investment in the team members at Cedarfield, and I know you felt that last year in the rate increases, but I think you're seeing the results of that today. We at one point coming into the holiday season last year, 22, had about 130 open positions across our company out of about 800. Happy to say that as of last Friday, we had 18 open full-time positions in the entire company. We only have a 2.2% vacancy rating across the entire organization. I'm a numbers nerd, but that's an incredible metric. We have decreased our turnover by 14% year over year, from 58% to 44%. And the really important number is our new hire turnover. The number of new faces that you all see day to day around the community. That number has been reduced from 39% to 28%. And that's a very important number because that goes to retention. It goes to how our team members feel when they come to work and how they want to continue to come and work here and be a part of our family. So those are important numbers. I think it was important to lay the groundwork as we talk about our resident satisfaction surveys. Chris noted that we use a company called We Care Connect. We use them both for resident surveys as well as team member engagement surveys. Very important because they tie together. The first area, I'm going to see if that does that. The first area picks the operations guide to get outside the box. The first area is resident satisfaction and how many of our residents, you had already advanced, excuse me, how many of our residents are satisfied living here? The numbers are small, but as you can see, our overall score in the company is 84. The metric down here is 81. As we Care Connect in all the communities that they provide services to, the average is 81. We're scoring 84 as a company. However, specifically, Cedarfield is at 87 over the last 90 days. And I selected a 90-day period of time because it's important to notice the trends. We were not there a year ago, and that's directly related to where we were with team members. Our other communities, Richmond at 80, Windsor Mead at 82, and Hermitage Roanoke at 84.
And again, so we're very, very pleased with the outcomes of where we are, and they're directly attributed to the stability of the workforce and the services that you feel that you are receiving here in the community. This is an interesting slide. It's residents who are highly satisfied, and these all come from the surveys. I'm sure you recognize the outcomes here because they're all directly related to questions that you're asked on the surveys. Highly satisfied residents, our overall score is 71, the metric being 65. Now specifically Cedarfield is 71, so they are 6 points above the metric. Windsor Mead at 77, and Roanoke at 75, and Richmond bringing up 56%. So again, they're trending in the right directions. The next area you want to look at is, our residents happy living at a Pinnacle living community? These are important gauges. Our overall score is 66. The metric down here is 59. Specifically, Cedarfield's at 66, and they're a large percentage of the volume of our community, so the Cedarfield does drive a lot of it. But Hermitage Roanoke 73, and Hermitage Richmond 57. Dining services, and we've had a 6 or 7 months of transition here. I think we're heading in the right direction. I'm hoping I'm seeing smiles. But with dining, our overall satisfaction is now at 77. The metric is 72. Cedarfield specifically, 84. We're at 12 points over the average CCRC Life Plan Community satisfaction rating in dining. Important number. And you can see the trending all the way down, 71 down at Windsor Mead, and then the other two be 72 and 76 at Hermitage and Richmond. Quality of care in the healthcare center, and this is an important area from last year to this year. Our overall satisfaction is at 84, with an 86 overall satisfaction rate. So we're 2 points below that. Cedarfield is at 84. Roanoke 88. Windsor Mead Roanoke 91, Windsor Mead 88, and Richmond down at 81. So we're continuing to work on the quality of care in the health, specifically in the health services areas, assisted living, and in the healthcare neighborhoods. And I think that is my area.
Great, thank you, Dan and Kevin. So we'll field questions at the end if that's okay for everyone. I apologize, I'm going to advance my notes here so that I can get caught up. Bear with me one moment. I want to transition to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And many of you will remember the summer of 2022 here in Richmond, where the Black Lives Matter protests were very, very strong and very, very impactful in our community. And we realized as an organization before that time, but it really hit us hard, that we need to do a better job of engagement with individuals and groups in the community who are marginalized, whether that be blacks, other people of color, our gay and lesbian residents and prospects and team members, and everyone else who falls in those lines. And as we look at who we are and what we do, we realized that we weren't alone in the life plan community world with the challenges we experience there. Look around us. There are very, very few minority residents sitting here. And those minority residents that are sitting here are truly pioneers, because they've broken down barriers throughout their lives to be with us today. And we should celebrate that. We started talking with Brander Mill Woods on the south side of Richmond, Westminster Canterbury Richmond, Lifespire, and again Beth Shalom, about what they're doing to impact the lives of minorities, both their team members and their residents within their organizations. And we all came to the same conclusion. We're not doing enough and we want to do more. And we don't know what more is, to be very blunt with you. So we engaged as a team with Leading Age Virginia, and we created the Dreaming Home Initiative. And a number of you participated in focus groups way back in February of 2023 here at Cedarfield. Cedarfield was the first of those listening sessions that occurred. And it took us nearly a year to capture all of those sessions. Dolores, who led those conversations, did great work for us. And she has delivered a preliminary report saying, these are the areas where you need to work. These are the areas that need to be impacted. But then Dolores was very quick to say, but I'm not the right person to help you implement that. You need to find someone else to help you with that. So since September, we started a search for the right person to help us with that. And we have recently engaged a gentleman by the name of Robert Dortch. And Robert and I had our first conversation last week about the implementation of recommendations and how that's going to impact our communities and what we do. Some people don't care. I respect that. Some people don't want to live with people of color. I can't respect that. It's 2023, and we need to change. Thank you, I'm sorry. It's 2023, and as an organization, we need to change. So we've engaged Robert, and we're working with LifeSpire, and we're working with Westminster Canterbury Richmond, and we're working with Brander Mill, and fortunately, we feel as though we found the right person to help us develop programs and systems so that we can better understand why people choose not to move to communities. And that's all marginalized individuals, not just Black individuals. And we're excited about that, and we're looking forward to 2024 being a good year for us in that regard. And I'll be happy to talk with anybody offline about that if you so desire. During that time, we also realized that we do have gay and lesbian residents living in our communities that are probably not being well served. Some of them are very public about their sexuality, and others aren't. And we respect that and appreciate that. So we started an effort to really better understand how we as a team can support people who may be openly gay or who may not be as open. And we found an organization called Sage Care. And we're very proud to say that we're now a Sage Care certified provider. 80% of our team members have been through sensitivity training, very simple process, to help them better understand that we do have gay people living in our communities. We do have homosexuals living here. Some of them, because of where they are in their lives, are very open about that. Others aren't. And we need to support those folks as they live their lives, and we support them in that. And we're working to equip our team members in that regard. So we feel Sage Care is going to be an important part of that. But we've got a lot of work to do, and we look forward to engaging those who are interested in that conversation. And 2024 we think is going to be a good year for us in that regard. But let's talk about what the future holds for us beyond that as well. And we shared with you about a year ago our preferred future state. And our board has adopted the mindset that we want to be known nationally for operational excellence and innovation. We want to be preferred regionally as a partner in building community-based solutions and collaborations. And we want to be prioritized locally as a thriving provider who instills trust and fosters vitality for those served and those who serve. As we look to the future, that's our focus. That's what we want to be. That's our aspirational goal. And we've got a lot of work to do to get there. And as we think about the high quality services that you demand and expect, that's a part of who we are and what we want to be. I'll be very honest with you and tell you that if we were to build Cedarfield today, it would probably be about a $500 million venture. Now, when we built Cedarfield all the way back in 1994 through 96, our initial investment was $80,800,000. And Kevin just shared numbers where did I not advance this? I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought I'd advanced the slide. Thank you, Dan. We've spent recently $90 million in upgrades and improvements to the community. We couldn't afford to build a Cedarfield as it sits today, in all likelihood. We couldn't afford to build a Windsor Mead today as it sits, in all likelihood. And if we did, entrance fees would be in the $1 million plus range, and monthly fees would be significant as well. So as we look to the future, we know that there are opportunities to serve a more diverse population, both socially and economically. And we feel as though we're positioned well because of our Pathways to Wellness program that you developed here at Cedarfield to support people in a new model of living. And that new model of living isn't going to be as big as Cedarfield. It's not going to have the health services component that Cedarfield has. Kevin talked about labor being our single largest expenditure. That's a big, big piece. Think about the number of people that work on this side of the building versus the number of people that work on that side of the building. Those of you in independent living, some who are receiving services in your home, are spending very, very little labor cost associated with Cedarfield. But our health services piece and our dining services piece are our differentiators, but they're also the very expensive components of life here in the community. So as we look to the future, we want to develop more independent living products with support services that in all likelihood won't include nursing care. They may include assisted living, they may include memory support, they will include home health and home health support, but that nursing component won't be a part of what we do. So that's a big change for us and a big shift. And we know that we can do better with that work, and we're looking at opportunities there. To support our preferred future state, we've developed 6 key initiatives, and they did come up here. Affiliations, enterprise growth and development, community engagement and social accountability, data-driven decision-making, the engagement of technology, enhancements of our Pathways to Wellness program, and people and human capital. Going back to those, affiliations and enterprise growth. Like much of what's occurred here at Cedarfield since 2019, it's time for us to start investing in our other communities as well. And we're working with partners to help us identify and prioritize that work now. In fact, Laura and Dan and Kevin and I are meeting with some marketing folks later this afternoon to look at some demographic and number opportunities for the future of Hermitage Richmond, and really trying to identify what's the best option for that campus as we move forward. I will tell you that along with the great work our teams are doing in all of our communities to eliminate agency utilization, our Hermitage Richmond team is operating in a cash positive position through the fifth month of our fiscal year. Let me restate that. Hermitage Richmond is operating in a cash positive position. And a lot of that is the work that Gail Knox did many years ago, and a lot of that is the work that Amy Chapman did up until very recently to set a solid foundation for that community. And we're doing great work there. But if you visited Hermitage Richmond, or if you have friends at Hermitage Richmond, you know that the apartments and lifestyle we offer there are very different than what you have here. And we know that we're at the end of the life cycle for that model. So we're working through that and trying to figure out what's next for Hermitage Richmond. We're doing the same thing for Hermitage Roanoke. And I will tell you that financially, Hermitage Roanoke is not yet contributing to the bottom line in a positive way for Pinnacle Living. We're doing better, and we're doing everything we can, but we still have our challenges there. And we're working through that, and we're identifying opportunities to help us fix that challenge financially while continuing to serve that market. Our community engagement is important to us. Our founder, Dr. Bernard Vaya, happened to be a Methodist minister, and his vision was a home for every Methodist in 1948. And we realized we can't be a home to every United Methodist. In fact, we can't be a home to every person. But we can be an aging services resource to our greater community while we serve you. In our 75-year history, we've learned a lot about service to elders. We've got a lot more to learn. But we feel as though as we partner and look for opportunities, much like our partnership with LifeSpire, we can serve a more diverse, broader community than we are today at Cedarfield, while also bringing those services to you here at Cedarfield for your benefit. And that's a big part of our community engagement piece. Data-driven decision-making. Those of you who come from the corporate world go, well, of course. How else do you make decisions? Well, as a nonprofit provider for many, many years, we made decisions with our heart rather than our head. And we've changed that model. And we're looking at data and we're looking at analytics. The Field of Dreams retirement community that was Hermitage Eastern Shore in Onancock, Virginia. Has anyone ever visited beautiful Onancock, Virginia? There are a few hands. The Delmarva Peninsula is an amazing place. Onancock, Virginia is not the right place for a life plan community. My predecessor used to say that they built the community ahead of the population curve. Well, Folks, I got to tell you, it's 2023 and that population curve still isn't in Onancock. And the people in Onancock don't want you. So that's an important piece too. When we were looking at the future of Hermitage Eastern Shore many years ago, we made a capital investment in that community that caused us to shrink occupancy in the community with the intent of renovating residences, replacing a roof, and then building occupancy. Well, guess what? There weren't any people to move in to build that occupancy after we shrunk it down. So we made the strategic decision to sell that community. Had we been relying on data, we wouldn't have made that capital investment before we sold the community. It's the best example I can give you there. So we've become more data dependent, and a lot of that data dependency is showing with our agency utilization here. Dan was a little bit introspective when he said there aren't many providers in the Commonwealth of Virginia who aren't using agencies in nursing care. I will tell you that there aren't many organizations nationally that aren't using agencies. And it's because of the culture we've built, the data that we've based our decision making on, our pay rates. We engage a third party group called Gallagher to help us set our pay bands for our team members. And pay is based on years of service, licensure, and experience. Our benefits program has changed because many of our team members have said, I appreciate the fact that we have a tax sheltered annuity program, a TSA. We actually have a 403B rather than a 401k. I appreciate the 403B, but I'm never going to be able to retire, or I never want to retire, and I'm never going to use that money. So I'm not going to participate in that. So we completely revamped our 403B program. And we're using excess funds from that to help support some other benefits that our team members are interested in. Anybody in the room have pet insurance? Yeah, not a single hand went up. Talk to your grandkids that don't have children but have dogs. It's amazing how popular pet insurance is. And if you go to your vet with your animal, you see the advertising for it all day long. Those are the benefits that a lot of younger individuals are looking for. That I'm 56, I would have never thought about buying insurance for my dog. But then I think about what our dog costs us and wonder if that might not be a bad idea. But those benefits are different than your generation and my generation, and the expectations of support are different. So to be honest with you, we've used data to help us become less paternalistic with our team members. We make options available to them and we let them select the options. Many years ago, we were certain that if they didn't have health insurance and they didn't have a retirement plan, they couldn't live. Well, folks, today, it's about putting food on the table, gas in the car, paying the rent, and taking care of the kids for a lot of young adults. So we've modified through data-driven analytics our benefits program, and that's helped us with our retention efforts for our team members. The engagement of technology, and this is a big one. So big, in fact, that I mentioned earlier that I don't think we're going to be able to afford what we need to do through normal capital routine changes within the organization. While I was sitting over here, I asked Amy and James and Dan if they remembered what our investment in technology in this room alone will be with the renovation. And it's somewhere in the $300,000 range. This room. New screens, new projectors, new sound systems, new audio-visual equipment, $300,000 just for one room. Now, what's this room, about 6,000 square feet probably? Cedar Field's over 1 million square feet. And as we look at technology, we truly don't know what the future holds. And we don't have the expertise on our team to help us with that. So we've engaged a group called ThriveWell, who was actually, they're a technology company that was founded by a not-for-profit senior living provider that focuses on the future of technology in senior living. And last night, I received an email from a resident saying, hey, my husband's in health services, and I just realized that he has been seen 6 times by a physician or a nurse practitioner, and I didn't know about it. And when I asked to look at the medical records, I was told, oh, you have to come down here to look at those. We don't have a portal for those medical records. Guess what? until someone in this room said, hey, you don't have a portal for medical records, it's not something we thought about. And those are the types of technological changes that are advancing that we need to invest in. And I believe in all sincerity that we're not going to be able to do that with routine capital changes. We're going to have to make a strategic investment for our future. That may include wireless technology, that may include improvements to your homes. I was sitting in a meeting yesterday and someone's phone kept going off because someone was ringing their doorbell at their home. Anybody have a Ring doorbell or know anyone who has a Ring doorbell? 15 years ago, would you ever envision knowing that there was someone dropping a package on your front porch or ringing your doorbell and you being able to answer it on your phone? It's different. You know, we've gone from nanny cams to technology that's changing our world, and we need to invest in that. And a big part of that investment is going to be the structural backbone that will help us live 20 years into the future. So that's a big part of that engagement of technology piece. And again, we don't have the expertise in-house. We've got 3 awesome team members who provide information technology support in our 4 communities. 3. Mark, Andrew, and Kirk. And a number of you know all 3 of them because sometimes they've been in your homes doing work for you. They're our entire staff when it comes to technology, and that's not enough. So the investment in human capital is going to be big in that regard as well. As we look to the Pathways program, I got to tell you that there aren't any organizations, in my opinion, that are doing it as well as you are here. Your partnership in growing the Pathways to Wellness program is something that we should all be incredibly proud of. And I will tell you that when someone talks to me about what I do and why, I lift up the Pathways program every time because you all did that. This community is on the map for that. And we feel as though, although our activities, events, lifestyle programs in our other communities are good, they can be better. And we can use your Pathways model in all of our communities to grow services for our residents. We're not going to be able to build the $11 million fitness center at Hermitage Roanoke. But we can take components of what happened in that building every day to the campus of Hermitage Roanoke in a small way and impact change there. I'm sorry. So that's where we are with that. And then the last one is people and human capital. And as we look to our team members, we're proud of where we sit. Dan just shared with you we have 18 vacancies within our organization today, full-time vacancies. That's 800 team members, 18 vacancies. We're proud of that. One of the big pieces of that is investment in those team members. And your scholarship program that you've created and you manage is huge in that regard. People are looking for opportunities to grow within their organization. People are looking for opportunities to be appreciated, and that work is awesome. We've got a scholarship program now in all of our communities. None of them are quite as advanced as yours, but we want to grow that. And as we look at our people, we want to grow our people, we want to retain our people, and we want to help them succeed for the future. So those are our key strategic initiatives. In March, we're going to be bringing all of our leadership team together, our executive directors and our department directors, and we're going to talk about how we're going to roll out these initiatives with your help at the community level. So after that March meeting, Amy and the team here will be equipped to move forward with that with you and in conversation. So we're excited about that, and we'll be back to talk with you about that more. But that's everything that I had to share today, and I'd love to open up the floor to comments, questions. It is right at noon, I apologize. Talked a little bit more than I thought we would. Would it be okay if we turned up the lights while we take questions? Yep. Nope, wrong one, Emily. Wrong way. There you go.
They don't pay me for this, sorry.
Everybody okay with that? Let's see. Amy, thank you.
Mr. Henderson, you talked about pathways to wellness. And so you are aware that we do have pickleball games, we do have a wonderful art center, we do have parties, we do have fun things that happen. My question is, why is the ad in the paper showing a ridiculous man in a go-kart, which we do not have. I think it's
Good question. May I?
Obviously, we don't like it.
I hear you. May I paraphrase and repeat that question for folks who are watching from home?
Yes.
Okay. So the question was, we've got great amenities, services, and programs here. Why do we have an ad with a ridiculous man sitting in a go-kart? How often do you talk about that ad?
Often.
Yep. And that's advertising.
It's
Okay.
bad.
Well,
It's bad.
I will tell you that statistically, even from a data standpoint, the ads are increasing the number of calls we're receiving. They're increasing visits to our website, and they're increasing interest. And yes, some people, a lot of people, don't like the go-kart ad, and we appreciate that. There are more ads coming that are not going to be the go-kart. Keep in mind, has anyone seen the commercial for the go-kart ad? All right. The ad, the television advertisement, is a life plan community through the eyes of a great-grandchild. And that's the focal point. Advertising can't be taken literally. You know, I wear Nikes, but I can't do it. If you remember back to the old Just Do It campaigns. I'm not a basketball player. I'm tall and uncoordinated. But I still wear Nikes. And that's what that advertising campaign is about. It's generating conversation. And I know that a number of you disagree with me, and I appreciate that. There are new ads coming. There are new print ads. We've got 3 of 4 new print ads that are actually being rolled out now. But it is generating what we need, and that's interest in the community. So I appreciate we're going to have to agree to disagree on that one. Okay. Other questions? One in the back here. I'm sorry, I see the hand.
Hello. You referred to nursing in passing, the future.
Mm-hmm.
Could you please expand on that?
So, yes, Robbie, I will. The question was, I referred to nursing in the future, and will I expand on that? Keep in mind, Cedar Field is a different model than what we're looking to in the future. As we look to the future, more and more work is being done in assisted living that in many instances had been done in nursing care centers. I saw a brief news clip this morning from an orthopedist, and it caught my attention because I'm having knee issues. And I had an ACL replacement about 20 years ago, and I went to my orthopedist, and he said, yeah, that's worn out. So going to physical therapy, trying to avoid additional knee surgery. 10 years ago, rehab for a knee was a couple of days stay in the hospital with isolation and bed rest. Today, knee replacements are being discharged the day of surgery. Nursing is different today, Robbie, than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and it's going to be very different in the future. Many organizations are saying, gee, we think we can do more in assisted living. And remember, we just built 24 new assisted living apartments here with a small skilled rehab center that we are very frustrated that we still don't have Medicare certification for. Although our team did exceptional work and had a deficiency-free survey, we're still waiting for the paperwork to give us our Medicare number. Frustrating. I'll stop talking about that now. But as we look to the future, those nursing care beds that we have today are not going to be in as high demand. Does that mean we're going to change? Probably so. If you think back to 1996 when we opened, we weren't Medicare certified here, and we're certifying 20 beds. Do we have any plans right now of closing 40 nursing beds at Cedar Field? The answer is absolutely not. That's not changing. But in time, the service model is going to change, and we need to be responsive to that. Robbie, what I was talking about was future models in more affordable environments. And that nursing component, our average per diem rate in healthcare today is $470 a day. There aren't many people in the world, quite candidly, who can afford $470 a day in nursing care. Y'all are an exception in that regard. As we look to the future, we need to figure out how to keep people out of nursing homes, keep them healthy, keep them engaged, and keep them in independent living and assisted living longer. And that's what the future holds for a more moderately priced environment. That answer your question, sir? Yes. Thank you. Again, we're not planning to close any nursing beds at Cedar Field. Please keep that in mind. Other questions? Mr. Smith.
Chris, I hope
You're on.
don't take my comments wrong, but you've covered an awful lot of stuff today,
Yep.
and I probably understand it better than most. I spent 40 years in a company with the same structure almost that we're operating on here. And that company didn't change when it should have, or made some wrong decisions, and it's almost disappeared. I'd love to sit down with you and Amy sometimes and share some of the things we did.
Yep.
But what I've heard you say today, if I think I understand it, Roanoke, Hermitage North, and Cedarfield is basically Pinnacle living period, and we're paying all of that structure. Your income is coming from here.
From here in Hermitage, Richmond today, as I said.
And the primary part of it is Cedarfield.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, I think knowing how important Cedarfield is to future finances, that maybe we need to have more things just like we're having today to talk about.
Okay.
Or either find more sources of income. Cedarfield, I think I'm understanding, is paying a large part of the income for you. You've got a pretty large staff.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things my company did do wrong, we went out hiring consultants too much because our board wouldn't believe management. That always struck me as weird. You spend a lot of money with consultants. You've either got to decide, is it going to be done with staff or is it going to be done with consultants? That's a hard subject.
It is.
Chris, you've got a lot going for you. I've been here 10 years and I'm amazed at how different Cedarfield is today than it was when I came here. And it kind of scares me to think, what's it going to be like 10 years? This world is changing. But right here, you're looking in this room, this is Cedarfield right here. We hear an awful lot about diversity, and that scares me a little bit too. I don't think there's any citizen that could come to Cedarfield that wouldn't be welcomed by Cedarfield. I don't think we need to be so concerned of going out trying to find them. We need to make it an open door, because right here is Cedarfield. I don't know whether I'm making any sense.
No, you are.
But I know things are changing. And I just wanted to share some. I'd love to sit down and talk with you sometime.
Nope, would love to do that, Mr. Smith. So if I can just paraphrase so that the folks can hear, things are changing. Cedarfield's different than it was 10 years ago, and it's going to be different in the future. And we need to make certain that Cedarfield remains financially viable, and I agree completely. And we need to look at the use of team members versus consultants as we do that. And as we look at diversity, we are an open community. But Mr. Smith, one of the questions that came up, and this one hurt as we were beginning this conversation of dreaming home, where do we normally advertise? What zip codes do we focus on when we advertise in our organization? The answer is, we advertise in the zip codes that you all came from. And if you think about the zip codes where most of you came from, most of us can live in, it's predominantly white Anglo-Saxon. We don't do a good job of advertising and telling people that our doors are open in minority communities. We don't do a good job of connecting with those civic organizations, and those are the things that we need to do. I agree with you. Cedarfield is a welcoming community. There are those that won't accept it, and I'm going to have to just agree to disagree with you with those folks. But as we look to the future, the world's becoming more diverse. And for Cedarfield to remain financially viable, the diversity here has to change as well. And the diversity of affluence is changing as time goes on too. So I appreciate your counsel, Mr. Smith, and would love to sit down with you more. And I still buy my bird seed at Southern States, and always will, for as long as I can. But change is going to happen. Change is going to make us different. Cedar Field will be here, but Cedar Field will be different. But as I said earlier, there aren't going to be many opportunities for more Cedar Fields. It's going to be a different model, and that's what we're pursuing as an organization right now.
Chris, we had a caller call in, talking of technology. The question was about the assisted living showers, and the question is, where are we with those showers, and what progress are we making to make sure that we're safer?
I don't know the answer to
That's
that. Can you answer that one?
Absolutely.
Please.
So just to repeat the question for those of you who are watching at home, a caller called in and asked about an update for the showers of assisted living and what are we doing to make them safer. So many of you know that we've had a 3-step process in making those showers safer. Most recently, we've installed a collapsible dam. We've had very few issues with that dam that has been installed. We are now working with our construction team as well as our architect to find the right product to install glass door product that will not in any way affect the warranty we have on the shower systems themselves. So it's taken us a little bit longer than we thought it would. As soon as we have that product, we will test it out and see if it makes things safer and better for those residents who are living in assisted living with those showers. And there'll be more information shared in upcoming meetings about it.
Thank you, Amy. We are at 12:15. Any final questions or comments? I know our team is more than happy to stay here and chat as long as you want. So if it's okay, we'll break up now and happy to chat one-on-one with anybody who'd like. Thank you all very much and have a wonderful day.